And in December, I started digging into Ethereum. And I wanted to understand the crypto space at large. Because when somebody tells me, and many people did, don't look at anything else, you're a scammer, you're a shitcoiner, you're a fraud. If I look at something else, that makes me want to look at it. And I started digging into Ethereum. And I realized how incredibly robust an ecosystem it was. The sheer number of developers, programmers, applications, the ecosystem was bigger than Bitcoin. The growth in wallet addresses was about the same pace as Bitcoin. So I started thinking about that. I got sent an article by, I think it was the NIDIG guys, and they were looking at Metcalfe's law, and I understood Metcalfe's law and how it probably applied to Bitcoin. But I asked Remy and actually reached out to Santiago Velez and said, listen, can you help me develop a Metcalfe's law model, just a simple one? We don't need the complex maths. We need to kind of prove that Bitcoin is basically priced in that. And maybe that stock to flow is representing that in a different way. And again, I'm not trying to refute the stock to flow model. I use it. I love it. Everything Plan B's done is a game changer. And he deserves all the plaudits. But once I started understanding the power of what Bitcoin was, it was clearly a behavioral economics driven model, the best of all. So behavioral economics in Facebook is why Metcalfe's law exists in Facebook is because originally you bring on your uncle, your aunt, your friend from school, blah, 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 and you create your network of people and you can keep in contact with them and you can communicate with them. And so that became network effects. And then businesses came onto it, creating more network effects, etc. But the shareholders were the ones who got rich, not the users. The shareholders benefited from the exponential revaluation of the network, because Metcalfe's law essentially is the value of the network goes up with the more nodes in operation. And so the users were separate from the capital. So the investors got rich and the users got to talk to their friends. And then their parents joined Facebook and they all left, went to Instagram, etc. But Bitcoin was a groundbreaker. And sorry, all of the Silicon Valley models were basically all of the same. They were all Metcalfe's law. Everything that came out of the internet, from Google to Facebook to Reddit, the whole damn lot of them. And they were all came out of meetings with people like Daniel Kahneman, one of the godfathers of behavioral economics, who basically taught them how to trigger dopamine receptors in the brain by like buttons, emoticons, and how emotion drives behavior, because it's all behavior is what you're trying to do. But with Bitcoin, you've created a network driven by behavioral economics, which is the network of money. And every participant gets rewarded by bringing participants in. So that creates an incredibly robust network effect. In fact, it's genius. Because more of us who believe in it, the more we attract other people in, the more we all get rewarded for it. So the behavioral incentive is extraordinary. And that is a way to gain adoption for a new money, because otherwise it's very hard to do. It's very hard to get adoption unless you get rewarded. So this is stunningly good. But I wondered how you could value Ethereum, because I could start to see how I could value Bitcoin and why it is exponential, why we have to use log charts. It's because the network effects of more people mean that the chart is always exponential. And we've only just started. I mean, we've got billions of people to bring onto this. So this is going a lot further. As I've talked about, I have no problem when I use, this log chart, for example, it would suggest potentially this rally could take us to 400,000, maybe even 1 million on an offshoot, because of the wall of money that I've talked about as institutions come in. Maybe I'm not. Maybe Plan B stock to flow is right and it gets out 288. I don't know. Doesn't really matter right now, but I think be surprised, because that's network effects go more exponential over time. But when I looked at Ethereum, the thing I was told not to look at, I realized that not only was the technology very interesting. And yes, it has problems. And yes, it's very different to Bitcoin. And in fact, it's not even a competitor to Bitcoin. It's just part of a new digital asset ecosystem. I realized that Ethereum was actually probably the basis of the Internet of Value. And the Internet of Value is something hard to get your head around as well. I'll talk a bit about it later. But basically, anything that you exchange that has value is going to be digitized. And Ethereum is breaking the ground for that. Now, there's the Ethereum 2.0 coming out, which actually hardens it as a platform and lowers the supply and speeds it up and probably cheapens the cost. There are, it is not perfect. Like, Bitcoin is not perfect for certain things. There is a massive ecosystem also being built in layer 2 solutions. And Ethereum has layer 2 solutions too, but it's also able to be changed, which is not Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is this hard, super wonderful asset of money. Ethereum is not that. So this war between Bitcoin and Ethereum is nonsense. They're not even the same thing. So I started to get the Internet of Value, and we started to see the rise of DeFi, and I'll come on to that again. So you could start to see real applications that were getting massive network effects immediately. And then I put Ethereum in the same terms as I looked at the network effects of Bitcoin, which was using essentially number of active wallet addresses. And it's a simplistic way of showing network effects. And what it showed was Metcalfe's law. When I put it against Bitcoin, if you see the chart here, you can see it's basically exhibiting the same traits as Bitcoin in Metcalfe's law, but actually the adoption's earlier and faster. And then when I put the chart of Ethereum against Bitcoin, starting at 5 million wallet addresses, to rebase them to a point where network effect starts taking hold, their prices were identical and the chart patterns were identical, but they're about 4 years different. That was like, whoa. So these are being valued exactly the same at different points because it's only the network effect that's valuing them. And that was an incredibly exciting discovery. And I realized that the entire space is driven by network effects only. And that, and then you understand that some tokens and some get network effect and then have S-curve moments. So they start to look like they get adopted, nobody really uses it, and it falls. That's called the S-curve. The S-curve could be a failure or a pivot or a change in use, and then it goes. So we've seen that. We see that in businesses and startups all the time. And we've seen it in Bitcoin, where the narrative has changed. Mt. Gox, it's going to be a scam. It's all about dirty money. Bitcoin goes off. 2013, S-curve. Back up, exponential, it survives. And we go into the next set of FUD narratives, S-curve. That was the banning by China, the forking, and all the other stuff, S-curve. Then back up again. So now we've got the Lindy effect, which is basically if you can't destroy it, it's going to get stronger. And Ethereum is going through the same. And this whole space goes through the same. Some fail, some that don't fail get stronger. That was mind-blowing to me. I now realized I had a framework of understanding that I could apply to anything within this space. So that was the big growth for me. And when you look at the speed of which this happens, because don't forget, exponential means it gets faster all the time. In log charts, it looks normal. It's kind of linear, but actually it's non-linear in its move. And we've seen this. I mean, I don't know. I had an interview with CZ, who built Binance. In 3 years, he went to the largest crypto exchange and 1,500 employees. I think it's the fastest startup in history. Speaking to Sam at FTX, I mean, I don't know how he did it, but he got this whole from idea to launching in 4 or 5 months, and then a year later, the third largest exchange in the world. Look at Coinbase, 56 million accounts. That's more than Robinhood and Fidelity added together. It's astonishing, the network effect. And we're bringing in the institutions, and they're spreading into Ethereum. And everybody else is building products on Ethereum.